Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kas.
And I'm Bryan.
And today, we're going to be talking about...
The New Federalist.
Fallen Land. A post-apocalyptic board game, okay? So if you're thinking Mad Max, or any kind of... Fallout, yeah, things like that. This is that game, okay? This is that game in a box. This game has been made
Not in a nutshell.
No. As a matter of fact, you need about 5 boxes, it feels like, to play this game. But this game's by John Longren and Sean Cahill, and it's by Fallen Dominion Studios. This game, let me just show you how much game is in the game, okay? That is some of the cards. All right, they're probably almost all of them. We got some of them laid out here. Yeah. But that's probably the majority of cards. So if you're wondering if you're getting into something pretty massive...
Yes.
Wonder no more, right? You can find any kind of spoil cards from knives. I want all your stuff, man.
No.
Guns. Beard brush. Rubber band gun. Oh no, they didn't fire. You're going to find all those kind of things in the game. I mean, all sorts of stuff. You'll even find this board game in the game as a spoil. So we'll go ahead and get into the game now, and we're going to show you kind of how it plays. I'm not going to hit every single rule because that would be absolute insanity. That's why you have a 42-something page rule book included.
Remember, an hour per player, so this will be a 2-hour video.
Absolutely. So we're going to show you that, and then we're going to come back and give you our final thoughts on it, okay? I'm sorry for the floating camera, but this is really the best way to get around the board and show you these things. When you first start out is you're going to pick your faction, and every faction is different. For example, swamp runners, they get different kinds of town technologies, different kinds of faction perks. And also, if you take a look, it has their story in the back. So just flavor text to just give you an idea of what these factions went through as they went along. All right. I mean, as you can tell, they're very varied. These are the Cowboys, the Regulators. These guys are awesome. I love them. These are more like a Native American tribe style. I mean, there's 10 different factions, so there's all sorts of different things that you can do with each faction. Look at these guys. The Brotherhood. Basic. Now, if you look, there's your score track, right? Start at 1. Now, this side is for the prestige, all the way up to 20, which is one of your win conditions. And this side wraps around all the way around the board. That's your town health, and you're going to start there at 30 and wrap around all the way around the board until you get to 80 to try to win. You got your turn marker chip right there, and that's basically gonna start there, okay? And then your insignia is gonna start there, and you're gonna move that according to points. And then you have another insignia that's gonna start there for your town health. And again, person with the most points at the end wins. All right, let me show you how Fallen Land is played. Now, this is going to be a general overview. We're not going to go through every rule in the game because, as I said before, that would be pure insanity, okay? This book will cover all of that, and it is an amazingly well-done rule book, as we'll talk about later. So, anyway, now I'm going to go ahead and go through just kind of a general starting setup, what it kind of looks like. In general, this is what your player mat's going to look like, as you notice. For example, these are the New Federalists, and all this good stuff right here. You got faction perks, which basically say, hey, I'm different than somebody else. I've got special abilities that take place on certain occasions, certain phases of the game, things like that. Or it also tells you what you might start out with. For example, these guys start out with a militia rifle, and as you notice, it's got even their insignia right there, that American flag, just like it shows on their faction board, okay? And also, you've got a bunch of little symbols here that represent factions, okay? These are going to represent faction movement on the actual board. So, for example, for the Federalists, you've got this faction. So you're going to start with 6 characters, and one of them is actually going to go into your town roster, okay? So you just basically pick 5 of them to start, and then you're going to get like 10 spoils cards, and then you're going to equip whatever spoils cards you get to those characters. And anything you can't equip, you can stick into your auction house, and that's going to come into play later on for trading, selling, things like that, okay? So you can get anything from mercenary armor, militia rifle. You're going to get things like rocket launchers, chainsaws, which, quite frankly, I should have attached to Ash because, come on now, Evil Dead. but I don't know why I did that. That was silly. You got lockpick guide and tools. I mean, they all have, a lot of these things have special abilities too. So even the rules say leave these specific cards with this arrow here a little bit untucked because it's saying it has a special ability that you need to watch for. So that's something else to keep an eye on. Survival knives. I mean, you got all sorts of different things. Now if you notice on the character cards, you've got all the stats laid out for skill checks, okay? Now, for example, this guy is considered a master. Why? Because this system that you're working on with the skill checks, it's a 10-point system. So once you hit 10 points, you get a success. And if you get, you know, and we'll go into this a little bit later on, but if you look, they show everything from attack power. You've got survivability, you got diplomacy, you got technical, I think that's mechanical skills. You got technical skills, medical skills, and it also shows you how much each character can actually carry. Now, if you look down below at like different kinds of cards that you can carry, spoils cards, equip cards, it tells you basically subtract away that number from the character's carry number, and it's kind of cool because it shows their encumbrance basically. Now if you look, it also shows their health, okay, and their psychological abilities, which kind of reminds me a little bit of a Cthulhu game, because the psychological abilities don't stack necessarily. They're done differently in this game, but damage does stack, and damage can happen from radiation poisoning, for example, biological stuff. I mean, just, you know, standard wounds. Now, if you take a look, you got chaining abilities here. It says, hey, if you have a ranged weapon, you get +2 extra on attack and +2 on diplomacy. And then some of them have special abilities. You're also going to start with $10, but in this game, because money doesn't really exist, you got a gas can here, right, which represents 10, the value of 10. All right, and bullets and all sorts of other things represent money as well. Now, you start with 2 town technologies, and it'll tell you right there on your player board, okay? Right there. And as you notice, I've got the exact same symbol as those 2 right there. So, for example, this gives me +1 success on attack and +1 success on diplomacy, okay? And that's pretty much what Town Technologies can do. You can actually go through the game and buy these, okay, through certain phases. For example, you might buy one for another 30 coins, okay? And it adds another machine success, right? But you can also upgrade this for 60 coins, and it gives you a +2 success. Another cool aspect of the game to remember is the action cards, which I believe you start with 3, okay? And that's what these are going to look like. And they do anything from attack, heal, stop somebody from dying, special effects on your player faction sheet, and there's a whole butt ton of these, okay? So yeah, these are awesome, and you can play them a lot of the times. A lot of these can be played at any time, some of them during certain phases. One thing I really thought was kind of cool was the fact that you can actually also hire mercenaries, NPCMs, I believe they're called, okay? For example, Ronin's Renegades. These guys can go on missions, they can go attack other players, they can, do a lot of damage, and it shows their, their health and their value and things like that at the bottom, how their movement is, what strengths they have, and they're represented by these little tokens here, and there's a bunch of different kinds. It's not the only one you get, right? So that's another cool thing to remember. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about with your vehicle is if you look, you see that +2 footprint. Okay, so that's basically saying I get a +2 movement bonus with this vehicle. But one thing I think is actually really cool and thematic, I'm attaching a camper to this thing, so it's going to take a negative foot bonus on there. It's basically taken away from that 2, so it's basically a 1 bonus. So what I'll do is I count up all of my movement bonuses and figure out what I'm actually going to get, and then right here on the movement bonus chart, I place an insignia showing how much extra movement I actually get when I roll dice to move. And we'll get into that here in just a minute. Now, I'm going to show you just some of these cards here. For example, if you could tell just from the side, I mean, the stacks are huge, some of them. For example, you've got spoils cards. You got a whole ton of character cards in here. You got action cards, like I said. You also have city rad cards. You've got, which means city or radiation. These are mainly your encounter cards here. Mountain, missions, plains cards as well, okay? For example, whenever you go out, if you stop somewhere in particular that corresponds with these cards, you're going to draw a card and you read what it says and do what it says on it, okay? From city radiation, mountain, If you stop on a mission, you'll draw a mission card. Planes cards, you'll draw planes cards. And by the way, start with the planes cards. Planes cards aren't quite as brutal as some of these others. Now, they don't give you necessarily as good of rewards, but as for example, the missions cards, which are amazing, or the city cards sometimes, which are amazing. But yeah, you want to try to progress in a good order. So also I want to show you all these tokens. You got point of interest tokens. You've got town defense tokens, which basically is they do what they say. They provide more protection for your town health. This is the whole glut of city technologies, basically faction technologies. Oh yeah, these are the penalty chips, which are amazing. And I'll get to these here in just a little bit. You got your health, you got your psychological damage, radiation, money, dice, so on and so forth. We're going to go through different phases of the game. I'm going to go through these kind of quickly just to give you an idea of what it looks like. But again, everything's laid out beautifully and just really well done. First thing is the effects phase. This is basically kind of like an end of round phase to us. Because you're resolving all these different things that take place on world encounter cards and other card effects, things like that. And then you've got the town business phase. Now, this is cool because you got a place where you can actually deal. Each player receives one action card. If applicable, deal extra action and or spoils cards received from town technology. So this is where you're basically beginning your resource production in a sense. You haven't hit that yet, but you're gaining what it says. Then you get actual resource production. And what resource production is going to be is when you actually go, and I'm going to show you the place on the map. Let's say I actually own this resource right here, okay? Well, my insignia would be on it, okay? And that means that when I do that, if I own, this is the resource production tracker, basically. This produces one extra town health and one coin, and then so on and so forth. It kind of stacks the more resource spots that you own. I would have an insignia right there designating an engine, right? I'm building an engine. It's where I'm generating resources from that spot on the board. Okay. So I would gain resource production. Auction house. Now remember, the auction house is on the left side of your player board. Pretty much it's open bartering. Okay. You can, you can basically go ahead and start wheeling and dealing with different things that you own. And actually, I'm sorry, that should be face up so everybody can see it. You can wheel and deal for pretty much what anybody has with almost anything you own, okay? From action cards to money to whatever. And I love that. It's freewheeling. Love that. Now, the next thing is the town events chart, okay? Basically, you're rolling a D10, and whatever that D10 does is what happens to you. I mean, 8, 9, and 10 are pretty horrible. I mean, you lose stuff on that. But when I did win, I was happy. So, yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's I mean, right in the middle, you got a no effect. But again, some people are not going to like that. Then you got the financial period, okay? You can actually sell all the different things that are listed right here, okay? Spoils, action cards, so on and so forth. You can purchase, which is the second part of that phase. Buy a tier 1 town technology. And this is the part right down here where it says hire, the third. That's for those mercs I was telling you about, okay? If you have them in your hand, you can actually hire them and work them, all right? Now, next part, the party exploits phase, which is probably where you're going to do a lot of your stuff, most of your stuff, more than likely. All right. The NPCMs, that's those mercs. You can actually go ahead and move them out and do whatever it is they need to be doing. Okay. Next part is the party exploits phase, and you have different kinds of deeds that party exploits phase. You're going to have 4 weeks to spend. Think of this as your time currency. You can do a movement deed. You can do an encounter deed, a PvP, which is player versus player, basically attacking other players. Resource deed, healing deed, and mission deed. Okay. Now, a movement deed is basically, it's very simple. It costs 1 week. Okay. So if I do that, that means I have 3 weeks left. Now, a movement deed, one thing too, also, when you first start out on the board, you're going to place your town on your designated spot. Every one of them are already marked, but you got a chip on there anyway, okay? And then you're going to place your little dude there, okay? Now, once you start, if you decide to do a movement deed, costs 1 week, you're going to roll a die, okay? So, for example, I've got 5, and what I'm then going to do is add in my movement bonus. Currently, it's at 1, okay? Now, I'm going to add a +1 to that 5 on the die roll, and I've got 6 movement, okay? Now, different places require different amounts of movement unless you have a card that negates that or, some other special power like a faction power or something, okay? So for example, if you want to move through radiated areas or city, it's going to cost you 3 movement. If you want to move through mountain hexes, which are these darker areas here, it's going to cost 2 movement. Okay. Plains are typically 1 movement, and water's typically impassable. All right. So for example, I've got 6. So let's say I wanted to go to here, and I want to go to this resource to gather it, basically to gain that resource spot. Well, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to count. There's mountains, that's 2. And then there's more mountains there, 4. And then that 5th spot is going to be it. And you can just drop the remainder, okay? And now I've gained that spot. I've stopped in that spot. Now, whenever you stop someplace, you have to do an encounter card of whatever type of terrain you're on. So because I stopped on a plains area, I'm going to pull a plains card. And then I'm going to read off the text. This one says Barb's Building Supply Store Loot. I'm not going to go through all the text right now, spoil it for you necessarily. But first thing you're going to do is take the 5. See that yellow 5 there? You're going to take 5 coins. So you gain salvage coins, which I love that aspect. You just put that into your pile. And then you read it off. And then what it's saying here is there's a success and failure. Typically you gain things on a success. Sometimes you lose stuff on a failure or you get killed. It just depends, right? So for example, this one's saying I need 5 successes on attack power to defeat this card, as well as 3 on that mechanical power, right? That mechanical skill. So basically now it gets down to it. I'm going to have to perform skill checks for both. Now, let me give you an idea what that means. This is going to get into the crown system, okay? So basically, you're going to take these D10s, okay? And this is going to be basically, it's color-coded to each crown in the system, all right? So for example, you got this guy here, okay? He's color-coded to the red crown here on the side. You got an orange crown, a green, it's supposed to be blue, I guess, but it's purple here on the board. I have a blue die for it. Brian was talking about this during the game, so, whatever. Anyway, you also have a yellow crown, and then the vehicle itself has its own crown. Okay, you see that right there, that V and that triangle? So what you'll do is you'll roll the dice, okay? And now I'm going to assign each die to each crown, okay? So for example, the blue's going to go on that purple, and then the black's going to go on the vehicle, yellow over here, and then green over here. Oops. Now, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to count up, because it's saying I need attack right here, and I also need mechanical. So first thing I have to do is do the attack. I'm going to go through everybody's dice and do all the attacks, see if I get those successes. If I succeed, then I move on to the actual mechanical part of it. That's going to be another die roll, okay? So right now I've got 4. This guy's attack power is 4 plus 1. That's 5. And now I have 7. Okay. So if you look and I count up 5 plus 7, that's 12. Okay. And then what that means is I have an automatic success, because once you reach 10, it's a 10-point system. You get an automatic success in terms of addition. But I have 2 left over. So here's the part that might be a little strange for you at first, but I promise you it's easy. It's just math, basically, at this point. Now, because of what I have left over, my new target number is a 2 or lower, because that's what I have left over. So I have this 5 here. You don't add this to the 2 or lower part. It has to be on the die a 2 or lower to actually have a success at that point. And then I just keep on going through. So for example, this guy's got 1 success. I keep on going through and trying to see if I'm able to get successes for this on each person's ability, okay? So for example, this master guy down here at the end, he already has an automatic 10, and then he has a 5 and a 7, so I need a 7 or lower. Well, that 8 doesn't count because I didn't get 7 or lower, but he still gets a success. Now, one other thing to remember about these skill checks, if, let's say, Ash here, he has 9. He doesn't have an actual 10 on attack power, okay? What it basically means is at that point is that your target number is whatever is less than 10. So currently we're at 9, so I would have to get a 9 or lower on this die to actually consider it a success, okay? So basically, let's just assume that I succeeded that part. Now, here's the kicker. Had I rolled a 10 for anybody, okay, on their particular success sheet, they would have failed. So, for example, this guy already had a success on the numbers that were presented, even before I rolled the die. But if I rolled a 10, he would have failed no matter what, okay? Now, that's not a fail for everybody. I'm just saying specifically for him. And the same goes for everyone else as well, all right? Now, the vehicle as well, don't forget to count the vehicle. Like this guy, the vehicle already has a 10, so that would have been a success. And then I add in what the retro mini camper does for it, things like that. Now, same thing would go for the mechanical, right? We would check that skill check next. You'd roll again, add everything up, try to see if it all works out. The other kicker is, had I rolled a 1 on this first guy, the 1 would have given me an automatic success. So not only would I have already gotten 1 success here, rolling a 1 gives me an automatic success, and then I can decide whether or not I want to re-roll it for any reason. So there's all the sorts of little things in here. Like I said, all this is in the rule book. Too much to go into here, but it's a very simple system, actually. It's just a lot of math, that's all. So I've got 3 weeks left. I can do another encounter where I'm at, and I can just draw a card from where I'm at. Still, I can draw another Plains card if I wanted to. I can do a PvP deed. Basically, that means go and attack my friend or the other player party in my hex, right? So that's just basically an attack. Resource deed, okay? I showed you what that looked like earlier. Had I wanted to claim that resource, I basically spend 2 weeks, put my insignia on that resource spot on the board. Healing deed costs 2 weeks. It's basically you're performing party medical skill checks and removing damage for successes and things like that. And it tells you everything, all the different kinds of nuances about that. You got your mission deed. Now, obviously, missions cost you a buttload of weeks, okay? It costs you a buttload of time. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, I wanted to do that mission deed, okay? Let's pretend I only had maybe 2 weeks left. Well, it cost me 3 weeks, and I really want to get it done this turn, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this week penalty chip, okay? And keep in mind, I had 2 weeks left to spend, but the mission takes 3, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Now, I could have done it for 2 weeks if I wanted to, or 1, okay? And some cards also penalize you in different ways, but let's say I'm doing this on my own volition, and I really want to get that mission done. Well, I can take a 1 week penalty, and the next round, the next party exploits phase that comes around, I will no longer have 4 weeks to spend. I will only have 3, but at this round, I'm going to be able to get that mission done. Okay. Adjust the turn marker chip and pass the first player sheet, which is this. And pretty much, I mean, like I say, it's not that hard of a game. It's just a butt ton of rules, all right? So once you get into the groove of this thing, this game will suck you in like most other things don't. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. Like I said, there's a whole ton of other rules in the game, but again, we got the rule book here, and it's very well laid out. You will love this rule book. Now let's get back to our final thoughts, which are going to be many. Board game, what do you think of it?
I liked it. I really thought this was awesome.
Okay. That's the end of the video, because I agree. All done. No, we got a lot to talk about, because there's 8 billion pieces in this game. That's what it felt like anyway. Yeah. You're going to have tokens for just about everything in this game. Let's go with production quality first.
Production quality, I really like it. On some of the character sheets, the feel, the boards was really great. I really like how on every card there's a story behind each one.
Oh yeah, that part was awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to sit down and learn the story between each one, it's a vast history on
Theme. This game is dripping with it.
Oh, definitely.
Dripping with it.
Overflowing.
From your player boards, which they didn't have to do that, right? To, I mean, everything else in the game. It all fits. It all works. It's immersive. It's strong. It's powerful. And you do not want to stop playing the game until you're finished. You really don't. Because you really are like, I am in command of my own faction, and my faction is different than your faction, and I have special faction perks or special abilities that you do not have. And I love that.
This one's different.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the first thing, we always want to get any negative out of the way, okay? The board, okay? The board, if you first see it, this board does not look exciting. It just doesn't. I mean, it doesn't really like pop at you. It doesn't go, hey, I'm walking past the table, I see that board, oh, wow, that looks amazing. Let me come and sit down. It doesn't really do that. But once you do sit down,
Oh,
it makes total sense. Like, once you figure all this out, once you figure out all the red and dark areas and all the light areas, the board actually makes complete sense why they went this route. And it makes me feel like I'm in Mad Max land or the Fallen Land or Fallout. Yeah. It absolutely works with the theme. It's not supposed to pop it with bright, cheery colors. Right? So if you get into this game, you're going into it to understand, you're going into the macabre, you're going into the horrors of what happens when humans don't have a lot of civilization left.
Walking Dead.
Yes, absolutely.
When I first saw it on Kickstarter, the board kind of put me off a little bit, but I read Post-Apocalyptic, and I love post-apocalyptic games. I love Mad Max, one of my favorite post-apocalyptic movies. I love that movie. And so once I started...
Mel Gibson edition or the newer one?
Where's that gun?
Exactly.
We won't talk about that. But,
oh, wow.
So, like...
You're in the minority, I think.
No, I'm a majority there.
Oh, my God.
So, first glance of it, I really started past it when I saw it on Kickstarter, but then I read Post-Apocalyptic. I started reading on it. I was like, this sounds amazing. I really want to get a hold of this, and luckily, we were lucky enough to get a copy of this. So the cons on this is like, it looks like there's done by 2 different artists.
Yeah, it does.
The artwork.
It's not very consistent.
Some of these cards. Like on the player cards, you
faction
got
boards.
These 5 faction boards look like they're done by all one artist, and these 5 right here that look like they're done by another artist.
Right.
So other than that, I mean, the artwork, I love the artwork.
I do too.
It's great. It's just a little more consistency. Granted, this was a 13-year game in the making, so I could see where there might be a little inconsistencies on that. I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me on that. But I still love the artwork on it.
I really love it.
Yeah. Other thing on console. All right.
Oh, come on. You are not going to nitpick about that. Everything else is great. Do not nitpick about that.
All of them were cut out except for the flag.
Come on, man.
It would have been cool.
You know what?
Have the stripe bars coming out for the stripes.
You remember those old canes, the little hooks they pull you off stage? Somebody needs to be doing that right about now. I'll use that. But anyway, so yeah, the artwork being inconsistent is a slight con. It's not a big deal. It's not a deal breaker at all. The artwork's still phenomenal in the game for the theme. It looks like a grunge style post-apocalyptic artwork. Again, it brings you more into the theme. Another thing, this game is not going to be for everyone. It's just not. I mean, I'm coming from a place of I love this game, but I still understand that not everybody will, because this game is for somebody who absolutely loves a game like Twilight Imperium 3 or 4 now. 4 that just released.
That are your role players.
Yeah, because we actually had a friend of ours who came over to even play with us today, and he's a role player, and he's used to these long 16-week campaigns or even longer than that, right? And he came in, he goes, "Oh yeah, love this. I could stay here all day and play this all day if I wanted." But the thing is,
he also caught on really quick.
Oh yes, he did.
That's one benefit. If you're an RPG player and you try out this game, you will catch on.
Because you used to play a little Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah, back in the day.
Right. So in many ways, this will fit because they were going for that light RPG feel. And here's the thing. This is a game that you're going to want to set aside a Saturday afternoon for, or a Sunday like today. And so in this game, there's a ton of die rolling, and I know several people that absolutely would hate this game because of how much there is in it. I mean, there's almost everything relies on die rolling. Or dice rolling.
Everything.
And so, yes, so that's a con, but it's not a con for everyone. See, that's what I'm saying. We have to look at the context. For us, we're going to love it, and we did. Not for everybody, though. It's just not. This is even Scott said this. This is an awesome convention-style game.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't play it at home and have fun like we did, but this is a convention game where you get people to come to the table and go, "Hey, we're going to take 4 or 5 hours with this. Can you join in?" Yeah, I've got time, right? Because they may want to find a very deep, immersive game. That's what this style of game is for, really.
This is going to throw different twists, different turns. I mean, there's cards in there that can help you or help the other players around the table. You can negotiate. I mean, this is like a real Fallout.
It really is.
Because, I mean, you can go and...
That was the first thing Scott said when he started playing. This feels like Fallout.
You can build alliances. You know, the more people that are playing with you, you can build alliances. A
lot of political stuff in the game. You can help each other just to get favors later on. I love that part.
If you like games that are deep and immersive, it's not really a con for me. It's a pro.
And it's not a con for me either. Like, this is a game, if you were looking at a game made for Kas, this feels like they tailor-made it for my tastes. Yes. They really... would you say...
Yes.
About the same for you?
Yeah.
Okay. It's tailor-made for me. If I'm looking... Now, I'm not saying perfect. I'm saying this is a game that has a lot of what I love in a game. It's got the wheeling and dealing and trading. It's got interactivity, a lot of interactivity. I could go attack Bryan. He can attack me. I love the card play, too, the action cards. Mm-hmm. The action cards were amazing because I can play an action card that might steal something from him. He did in the last game. He played an action card on me that I was going to use to steal all his coins, and he had a card that said...
No, let's back up.
What was it?
You played a card to steal my coins.
Right.
I had a card that allowed me to take his card, put it in my hand, and disregard it.
And then he took all my coins with the card I was going to play.
Then I played it.
That's awesome, okay? If you can have that turnaround gameplay where you just don't see it coming, right? And somebody just outplayed you. I mean, I didn't know he had the card, but I wasn't even mad. I wasn't even mad. I was going, this is awesome. I was going, you just took all my stuff.
And
how dare you?
It's like everything.
It's like, how dare you take my gun away from me and use it on me? That's kind of how it felt, right? It's just like, he shot me with it, right?
Jackie Chan.
Yeah, absolutely. He Jackie Chan me, but that's what I'm saying. This game has those moments where I remember it. I remember also the story cards, the encounter cards.
Yeah.
Wow, the encounter cards were amazing. You know, one thing I love about the encounter cards is most of them you're going to gain a lot of salvage coins. Okay, you're going to gain money almost every card you pick up. At least the ones we played. And there ain't no way that we've had this game, and we played it several times, but we've had this game only for a matter of weeks, about a month now.
So we haven't touched half of these.
And that's not even half the deck. Yeah. That's not even half of how many you get. Because you get an encounter card for wherever you go. Mountains, city, radiation, plains. And I love the fact you're able to gain money off of it. I love the fact that
I just thought that said the city was rad.
Yeah, I know. And then you go there and you die from radiation poisoning, right? The rules in this game, pull it out. It feels like it weighs a pound.
Yeah, see that?
That sucker's like thick. Plus 40 pages of rules.
It's like an eighth of an inch thick.
Yeah, you need to read every page. You really need to read every page. The index, I'm going to say this, that is one of the best rule books I have ever seen. It is so well thought out. It has diagrams.
Explains everything.
Has the beautiful glossary and index. And I say
Jim
beautiful.
Does this? Okay, if Jim does that, then you do this.
That quickly.
Yeah.
If we had a question in the game, I don't think we had a single question that book did not answer.
I mean, there's an index in the back, so I mean, you can quickly find your answer to practically anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because every time, it's almost like they didn't even need to include a fact page because it was all well laid out. You can tell, and I'm going to say this probably several times in the review, you can tell it's a labor of love. This sucker's been in development for over 10 years. It's been about 13 years, I think it was. And you can tell just by reading the rule book because they obviously, if they didn't get that part right, this game would suck. It really would. We would have never figured it out. Yeah. But because the rule book was perfect, I mean, as close to perfect as you can get in a fallen land, right? It helped everything go much more smoothly. I also love the characters in the game. For example, Ashton Campbell, Bruce Campbell, Ash from Evil Dead and Army of Darkness.
Max Gibson.
Absolutely. I mean, come on, Mel Gibson, Mad Max. The Easter eggs they put in this game, it made us like have nerd rage. We're like, yeah.
Like one of the spoils card where you have the range, it's alien plasma pistol. Fallout.
Come on, baby.
Come on.
Hey, come on. I was able to wield rocket launchers. Dude, we had the Scooby-Doo van in the game. I mean, we had there were so many beautiful Easter eggs. You're sitting there going, oh, dude, I love that. Oh, dude, it does this. Oh, dude, and all the theme usually works perfectly.
This one's pretty good. DeForest. I mean,
he was going,
all you
Star Trek.
Trekkies out there, man.
All Star Trek.
Come on.
And again, I love the fact that board game was in the game, and you just naturally get 2 prestige off of it. That's another thing. I like the idea that you get a couple of different paths to victory. You're either getting 80 town health or 20 prestige. I love the fact that I'm building my town up, and I'm also able to gain resources, right? I like also the fact that your vehicles, everything, again, this game is so rich with theme.
It's a very immersive,
I love the fact that, like, if you get a vehicle, and you let's say I got an
ambulance right here.
Yeah, let's say you get an ambulance, for example, and you got to attach a trailer to it. Well, the ambulance might give you what, +2 movement?
3.
Oh, +3 movement. Yeah, that makes sense because it has to go faster to help people. +3 movement, right? So you add that to your movement tracker, and you add that to your dice, and you're able to move faster on the board. Well, the other thing I love is the fact that the more you're adding to your vehicle or your people, sometimes it may weigh you down, and it removes your movement, and it makes you move slower across the table. Little tidbits like that, again, make me know that they thought through every detail. Every detail. From the encounter cards, again, which feel like Dead of Winter cards on steroids because of all the text, the stories. I will remember some of these stories for a while because I'm sitting here like I think the first time I ever pulled an encounter card in the first game we played, the little kids beat the crap out of my party and I think killed one of my guys, okay? And it even says, little kid, ha ha ha, way to go. You had your butts handed to you by little kids. Even the cards are trolling you, man. And I love that. Everything in this game, I was laughing half the time just reading some of the stories. Because I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, this looks like out of this movie. Or oh my gosh, this looks like this out of this movie. So, yeah, and I do love the dice. The dice are awesome. I like the code system. I do like the crown system that it makes sense, right? It makes sense according to which characters are going through what. Because sometimes on the encounter cards, it says, hey, this particular character. Well, what character do you know it is? Well, it's by that crown. I love that because that makes sense. Now I know which die goes with what,
except
and who's going to attack what.
The purple crown, which is actually a blue die.
Oh, shut up. That's a little... Who cares? You are a nitpicker, man. You are so OCD about some things. And I thought I was bad.
It's not straight.
It's not on.
One thing I would like to mention, like there is this 1 week or 2 week penalty card. You may get a card that will give you a 1 week penalty, maybe a 2 week penalty on your next turn. But there's a plus side. You can use this 1 week or 2 week penalty card to do extra movements.
Right.
So that
party exploits phase.
I really love that on the party exploits phase. That I was able to do a couple things that I wasn't able to on some of the rounds, just by saying I'll take a 2 week penalty. That way I can get another resource.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you another thing. In this game, one thing you'll want to know. This is a tip for you. You want to progress in a proper fashion. What I mean is, you want to start like. I think at the beginning we wanted to go for the missions and some of the higher end stuff like going to the cities and the higher end cards first. No, you really don't want to do that unless you're a masochist and you just like to get hurt, okay? You want to try to start from like the plains and build your party up. That's another thing I liked about this.
Build your party.
In the beginning, I said there was a lot of die rolling, and that could be a con to some people. But for those same people, I would also say you can mitigate a lot of that with how you build your characters up. Because there were several times in the game he should have died in the last. One of your guys should have died in the last game we played, and you were able to save him with a card.
Yes.
So yeah, if you don't have that card, you're screwed.
Well,
but
plus you got to look at some of the dice roll you can mitigate due to like if you got a master and we're rolling on skulls. You know, the attack, he's already got one success right there.
Right.
Then you got your other things like your
town technologies, which get you so much help.
Which may give you a success as well. So, I mean, in some of your cards, you may not even have to touch a die.
Right.
And some of them you probably will.
Right.
But that way you can mitigate all that by just building up your people.
I love the point of interest cards. I love those points of interest because, I mean, we found a daggum casino in here. Yeah. And it's like, hey, you can come in here and wager or bet anytime you want. And I'm going
$5 on that one.
Yeah, you did. And I lost a spoils card. I lost my horses all on that one. But I'm telling you, they thought of everything in this game. It feels like a living, breathing world you're going into. The fact that they even said, I found a casino. Come on, man. How many games are you going to find a casino out of all those cards that are in there? There's just no possible way 2 games are ever the same. Replayability factor. This game, is going to be replayable out the wazoo. Has so much replayability. I don't think you'll ever really get bored with this game. I really don't. If I was going to make a top 50 list right now, this game would be, well, I don't want to say exactly where, but it's up there.
I could put this up in the top 15.
Wow.
I mean, I can tell you the reason why this would make my top 15, because it includes a lot of things I love. Post-apocalyptic.
Amen.
It's like Mad Max Fallout.
That's right.
Right there. I mean,
you're running into mutants and everything else in this game.
It's an RPG. Yes. I haven't played RPGs in so long.
Brought you back.
I'm back.
Tell
I'm
it,
back,
man.
baby.
So where I'm standing on this is a solid 9.5 for me. Where are you sitting on it?
9.5.
So full beard from both of us. Full beard score. This game, Fallen Land, post-apocalyptic board game. If you love games like Twilight Imperium or Star Wars Rebellion or anything like that, if you love RPGs, I really think you need to own this game. I really do. And if you couldn't tell how giddy we are about this game, we can't stop talking about it. This game needs to be in your collection. Any serious game owner who can handle this type
will be in your collection.
Yes, you will own this. Okay, you will pay the money. You get what I'm saying. So anyway, that's going to be all from us. I know that was a lot, but that's going to be all from us. Thank you so much for watching the Dice Odyssey. Please like and subscribe to the video, and hey, go take a look on Fallen Dominion's website. I'm sure they're still selling it. I don't know if they're still doing pre-orders right now because I don't think it's actually hit the market yet, but it's coming. I know it's coming very soon. But yeah, tell us if you've had a chance to play this, what you think of it. Do you like games like Twilight Imperium or Star Wars Rebellion or anything along those lines? We thank you so much. You have a blessed day,
and game away.